Today we're going to talk about how genetically modified crops have been redesigned to control pests and have had some awesome outcomes such as decreasing the use of insecticides. So today there's a lot of controversy around genetic modification, but what a lot of people don't actually realize is that we've been genetically modifying crops since the beginning of agriculture. For instance, take a look at what corn looks like in the wild versus what it looks like when it's called organic. It's really different, and this has been done through the process of natural selection. And natural selection is kind of like the same thing as genetic modification, it's just not being done in the lab. But it is being done deliberately by pairing breeds together to get a desired trait to be expressed. So, in really simplified terms, genetic engineering and genetic modification is really just a sped up process of natural selection, which is something we've been doing since forever. So now we're going to look at a specific way that genetic engineers have modified organisms in order to control pests and decrease the use of pesticides. Bacillus thuringiensis, BT for short, is a naturally occurring bacterium that is found in the soil, and it produces a protein that targets a specific pest, like the European corn borer. And genetic engineers have been able to use this protein in crops to make them resistant to these pests, and now we're going to look at a simplified way of how they do it. This is a pest such as the European corn borer that is eating through a corn plant that has not been genetically modified. This pest ruins the crop yield, and farmers try to use insecticides to kill them, but the insecticides are harmful to the beneficial species around the area and gets into the runoff, which is bad for the environment, and it's also expensive for the farmers. The gene that codes for the protein that is toxic to the corn borer is essentially copied through gene sequencing, splicing, and inserting it into the DNA of the corn. While this is a really complicated process and it takes many trial runs, essentially the result is that the DNA of the corn expresses the protein that is toxic to the corn borer. And so we get a genetically modified crop that expresses the BT gene and kills the harmful pests while leaving the other beneficial species in its surrounding perfectly fine. It also increases the crop yield and decreases the need for spraying pesticides everywhere, which makes it so it never has to get in the runoff in the first place. The success of this genetic modification and decreasing the use of insecticides over the years can be seen in this graph from Harvard of the inverse relationship between insecticide use and the amount of BT corn that's being used in the US. So, no matter how you feel about GMOs, now you know how the BT gene has helped improve crop yield in corn and so many other produce all around the country to control pests and decrease the use of harmful insecticides.